If we can start going through the agenda. I want to go back to the resolutions held. In item 4, which is the resolution that relates to the Albany County multi-jurisdictional multi-hazard mitigation plan. And we introduced that, and then we held that so that we can get a presentation on it. People who have tried to look at the plan will note that the plan on the county website is about 210 pages, but it does involve the water and fire departments. And they are here tonight to quickly give us a review of it, so that we can hopefully consider this and pass the resolution on Monday. So I don't know who wants to, Steve, you want to?
Well, good evening. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm Joe Gregory from the fire department. I'm sure you recognize me from my many visits here. Lots of women standing here. We're just here to talk about this mitigation plan. We know that it's 200 pages in length, and it's a very long read. So what we tried to do is just kind of summarize some stuff for you in a couple of pages here to give you a brief, just a brief synopsis. So basically what the plan does is it defines what a hazard is, and then it talks about what hazard mitigation would be. The purpose, obviously, in the third paragraph is to reduce further damages from things that we've learned about in the past. The document has a lot of historical data in it that talks about incidents that have occurred in our region and in our area. So we're trying to learn from past experiences and beef up our forces. One of the things that we talk about, and we'll be joined by Mr. Bill Simcoe later on from the Water Department. One of the things that we kind of pride ourselves, and we've mentioned this before, is that in the event of a disaster, because of our planning and our pre-planning that we've done, and looking at past incidents and also looking to the future, is the fact that when we get to a scene of an incident, it's not who are you, but how are you, when we meet our fellow emergency providers. So we're all very familiar with each other, and we're able to move forward and attempt to mitigate the situation and get it under control as quickly as possible. You'll see under the plan purpose, the last paragraph there talks about participants from the city of Albany. There were many folks that joined us in this. This was run by, it was spearheaded by the County Office of Emergency Management. It was participants from all, I think, 17 communities.
Every township and village in the city.
Every township and village in Albany County, correct. And the initial participants in our group consisted of the mayor, representatives from the police and fire departments. Chief Toomey and myself were on the task force that was there, as well as Chief Abriel, who's retired, and Chief Senior, who's retired. So we brought into the picture Chief Wickham and Chief Walker now are representing them. The Albany Police Department representatives were Lieutenant Tom Gibbons, who has since retired, and also Commander Basil. And I failed to put him on here. I'm sorry, I left him out. But
he's retired.
He's retired also. Yes. So he's gone. DGS was there. Dan DeLillo was there, and the Albany Water representative, as we said, was Mr. Simcoe, who has a great background in FEMA. He'll let you talk. We'll talk about that, so he can move on with that. The second page talks about the breakdown of what we felt were the severity in potential impact to our communities and our areas. So the very high stuff we talk about, and it's a great time to talk about it now, is the severe winter storms and flooding situations. And then I'm not going to read all the stuff, or you can read all that. But again, this summarizes what we felt was, as a group, what would be targets or potential hazards to our region. So that second page kind of goes over that. And then the last page, last but not least, it talks about the mitigation goals and what are our goals here. And obviously minimize injury and loss of life from hazards, the loss of existing structures and hazard areas, protecting our natural resources and cultural resources. And as you know, Albany is a very powerful city. I guess for lack of a better way to put it, we're the seat of state government. We have our city government right downtown. We have the Empire State Plaza, which has the Axelrod laboratories are located there. We're moving them to the state campus, but there's a lot of potential deep down in the subsections of the Empire State Plaza that are targets. We have natural disasters that may occur in our area. You know, we've had incidents up at the golf course at the Normanskill when we had the landslides there. We've had incidents over on Crumpton Road. And most recently, as I'm sure you were all well aware of, was the incident on the Hudson River.
Yeah.
That was a great wake-up for all of us. As a matter of fact, it was a true wake-up for me, because at 5:30, as I was watching the news, I received a phone call from Troy Fire Department, who said to me, "Hey, Joe, you watching the news?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "See those tugboats?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He says, "Well, they just passed our bridges. They're all yours, brother. Good luck." And hung the phone up. So needless to say, I made the phone calls to our guys. We set up a command post at our fire department. We had, I made with several phone calls. We all talked to each other. We had Albany Fire, Albany Police, Albany County OEM, the Office of Emergency Management, the Mayor's Office. Brian Shea was there. We had the port. We were in contact with the port, with Rich Hendrick from the port, trying to come up with some contingency plans. Again, the hazard mitigation plans, some offices, some areas, or some departments can come up with specifics. We have a lot of plans in the fire service. We have a lot of standard operating procedures that we follow, and contingency plans. We have winter responses that we can go to in the event of a snowstorm. We did it just last week on the 19th and 20th when we instituted our inclement weather response action plan. So we're ready to go. Again, going back to the port area or the incident on the Hudson, one of our major concerns was the fact that the bridges were closed from Albany and Troy, between Albany County and Troy. That cut off the fire response from Troy into Waterville and Green Island and Cohoes, which they supplement them quite often. So that put a big impact on us. So we had our battalion chiefs in. I mean, just basically so you know, your fire department was ready. We were ready for whatever had to happen. Did we have a plan for it? How could you plan for something like that? I mean, let's be honest. But we, based on our training and the personnel and our resources, we felt we were in control. We worked hand in hand with state police. It was what we refer to as alphabet soup down there. It was DOT, DEC, SP, APD, AFD. So I mean, it was just we had everybody going there. So Larissa had contacted us and asked us to come and talk a little bit about the contingency plans here. We felt this was kind of just to give you a brief overview of what we're going to do. We spoke with Mr. Conti prior and said, he laughed at me when he says, how long is this going to take? I said, give me 5 minutes. It's 3 pages. So this is kind of just an overview of what we're doing. And,
so like with the barges that broke loose, were we tasked with doing anything, or?
No, because of just the way it happened. I mean, we were there. We were at the command post, the scene command post, and we watched the drones as the drones took the footage of the barge that just barely missed the Captain JP. All we could envision was shrapnel all over the place, and how it missed it, I don't know. We have an angel up there, you know, and it just went through. It went through unscathed, so we lucked out with that. But then we had to make contingency plans because as it hit the bridges down, it did strike the Dunn Memorial Bridge abutment. So we had to have a plan in the event of our particular concern was life safety at that point. So, you know, we worked in conjunction with the police department and traffic control, and their concerns were traffic control and the scene containment. So did we have a plan? Sure. Yeah. I'll tell you we did, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
but we didn't have to capture those.
No, we did not. But we found that we have a new respect for tugboat captains now. They did a fantastic job. But it's something that brought to light some questions for us and for PD that we're going to look at in the future, because we need to look at part of the way that we pre-plan things as a fire service. Same in the military, I'm sure. What if? We saw an incident happen. That's what this document has. It talks about.
And you didn't figure this one out, of what if.
Oh, we got it. We got it down.
Who was in charge of coordinating the response?
Overall response was the New York State DEC was the incident command.
And that's because that kind
Environmental conservation.
Okay, because.
Maritime issues.
Maritime issues.
Over the course of time, once the Coast Guard arrived on scene, because it's below the federal law, Coast Guard has jurisdiction.
But they were several hours out. They flew a plane in from Massachusetts, and they had boats. They had 2 ships coming up from Saugerties. But their estimated time of arrival was 1:30 in the afternoon, so we knew that. So in the meantime, we had
Basically,
control.
all over.
Yeah, we looked at.
I'm sorry, you probably mentioned this, but where can we access this report?
I sent the link to
If you take
Marissa.
this,
They
Albany
go to the
County,
county website.
County website?
Google, put this on your Google,
What
Google line.
department is this? Department, what department?
Emergency management.
This would be emergency management, but let's see. Here it is. Here,
It's under,
it's in the
the
resolution.
resolution has a link in it. It is, I just did that today.
Okay.
I have it right here if you want it.
Yeah, go to the county website, go to departments, go to the Department of Public Works. And you will just scroll down and you'll find it right there.
Okay, I'll get it. Thank you.
But yeah, just go to albanycounty.com and then go to Public Works Department.
Chief, did you work with Amtrak too? Because I
Yes.
know the railroad bridge was in the line of fire too.
Yes, we did.
And I mean, that could be a serious thing
Oh, absolutely. That was a major
with
concern. for us.
oil tankers or whatever.
Well, also the
I thought
life
they were
safety program, because
I thought it was
passenger
lodged
trains.
into the railroad.
It was.
bridge.
It
Like
was
the
lodged
train-
into there, and then
trains going
they
up.
moved trains over the bridge while the vessel was still stuck under there. But Amtrak, that's a great question. Amtrak did have engineers and their command staff on scene, so we were in contact with them. That's a major concern for us too, because anytime we put personnel up on the railroad tracks to monitor things, we have to make sure that the train traffic is stopped. And that could be a lengthy process, because phone calls have to go throughout the country to make sure we're cutting down a major passageway for Amtrak, and that's what their concern was. We weren't, but this incident is costing them money.
Chief, that brings up, with incident command system, and I've been trained on certain levels of it. Is Amtrak I know the police get trained on ICS and state police, you guys, but the other people involved, are they?
You'd be surprised at how many people or what agencies are involved in incident command. One of the best places that we've seen that enact incident command is the Department of Transportation. They do it in every snowstorm, and we've taken all the levels of incident command, and the DOT folks come in and train us because they're so good at it, because they use it every day. They use it every snowstorm. They enact their incident command system, so they're top notch. But yes, we had Department of Transportation, we had Amtrak was there, and as I said, state police were a major factor. Office of Fire Prevention and Control sent down folks that are involved in setting up command posts and bringing materials down there for accountability purposes and for communications purposes. So.
Very often you'll find if they're not mandated after an agency takes part in a scenario where incident command is used, they have interest enough to go to find more about it on their own.
Okay.
You may notice in chief summary, were mentioned different stages of an incident, and one of those is recovery, which is after the incident. When a large-scale incident finalizes, it actually is a very, very long process, and that it involves sometimes reimbursement of costs. So the passage of the resolution would fulfill the FEMA requirement to be able to apply for funds and reimbursements in the case of a large-scale incident.
Were there any damages to the bridges?
Very minor.
As far as we know, everything
There
was
none to the done.
Yeah, they allowed traffic on all. We did on the site ask actually it was Craig and I were there, and we asked that the Amtrak engineers were there, and we were talking with them afterwards, and they said, we said, all right, all kidding aside, how bad is it? Because when we saw the ship go in, our concerns were we thought it was going to sink. It was listing, and we thought there was going to be an issue, but we weren't sure if it lifted it up off the pylons or not. And he said, no, everything was intact. It was just we lucked out with the time of day and the tide at the level that it was at. It just was a perfect move. So I don't want to say perfect storm, because but it was okay. So.
Well, we are lucky with that.
Yes,
one.
thank you.
We are lucky. We are very lucky. Yes, we are. So.
Are there any questions so far?
Again, I think the big concern here is, as Chief Wickham and Craig said, passage of this resolution would definitely work to help our part and ensure us the fact that we could be funded. The threshold for funding is pretty high, but these costs mount up very quickly for prolonged incident, as we found out from when we had that
The
incident.
threshold is $29 million.
Might be
So,
somewhere right around
this
there.
Catskills causing flooding, the $29 million.
And I think Bill could.
Bill could probably talk a little bit
Yeah.
more about that, if you don't.
Everybody knows Bill Simcoe?
There is, speaking to that, there is no cost associated with the approval of this.
No, that is correct.
No, I guess my point of view on the hazard mitigation plan from the water board and the water and sewer system is we wanted to make sure there were things in the plan that addresses some of our priority projects, like our trying to do the flood mitigation on Sheridan Avenue and Hackett Boulevard. We had some components of those put into this plan. So if we have an emergency, federal emergency funds are available, then we would be in a position to take advantage of some hazard mitigation grant money. And we even got an EPA technical assistance grant and used that to develop some more of the concepts for Hackett and Sheridan into the plan. So you need to have this updated every 5 years. You have to update and adopt a plan. There's been a plan in the past, and this is just the new version of the plan. I actually worked for FEMA for a few years right after Hurricane Irene and Lee, and I worked at the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. And a lot of communities didn't really have their plans up to date, and so they were scrambling to get their plans updated while they were applying for funds. I don't think there were a lot of folks that had money denied to them, but it's just good to have your plan in place and have it updated, and if possible have real projects in your plan, so that if you need to, you can get going with them right away. Any questions?
Thank you for your work on this.
Yes, thank you very much. Very important.
Absolutely, thank you. That'll be a pass for Monday. So let's go back to the beginning of the agenda. There were the minutes for the January 7th meeting. If there are no questions or comments, we want to move those for passage or for adoption. I just want to note also, we're going to have 2 public hearings on Monday. So right after the moment of silence and before public comment, we will be going into the 2 public hearings. And the notices are on the following pages of your agenda. The first one will be on the operation of methadone dispensaries, and the second one will be on the signed ordinance. If there are no controversy on either, the methadone one came out of committee, right, Kathy? Mm-hmm. So if there's no controversy on any of them, they can be moved for passage that night.
Okay.
So, and I don't know if we have any expectations about people coming out. I don't know on the methadone one, if that's one that might bring people out or not, but in any event. So once we do the public hearings, then we'll move on to public comment, and then we'll move on to the minutes. On the local laws, Mr. Hoey's local law A, which was amended at the last meeting, that will be moved for passage, correct? And the other one is a hold. And on the ordinances introduced, actually I began to look at this a little bit more closely today. This seems to move some provisions for adjudication of fines within the Department of General Services. I think it moves some other provisions. Anyway, this will be an introduction to the Law Committee because it deals with fines, etc. Mike, if you want to carry it, that's fine. Okay. All right. And Jared, can you look at it and see if it doesn't do anything other than what it says it does?
Okay.
But, That will be, so right now I'll have that as Mr. O'Brien and a referral to the Law Committee. And this was requested by DGS. We always try to accommodate departments because 99% of what the mayor and the administration asks for, we usually do.
Yes,
Not no more.
No, 99.
Well, it's
Not last week.
still a
About
high
1%.
percentage.
It is a high percentage.
Well, on the ordinances held, we are accommodating. On ordinances held, so the first one by Ms. Fahey is the methadone dispensary one. That one, actually, we did move to amend it at the last meeting, so if that's moved for passage, you have to move that with an amendment.
Okay.
That's item 1. Item number 4 is the signed ordinance, and that can be moved for passage, depending on the hearing.
And that's,
Then item what, Alfredo?
I just want to know, are there any issues or concerns, do any council members have any concerns with the legislation being moved forward for the methadone clinic? So we can try to address those now.
Those are the amendments that went through the committee, came out of committee, correct? With the amendments, so it's all went through a committee process and everything. If anyone has any questions, check with,
So Chris Spencer was going to be checking on whether the legislation as amended would prohibit.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Actually, that is an issue. So perhaps we will not be moving.
well, it's up to you if you want to, don't,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll call Chris.
Okay.
about it.
so what was that issue?
The issue
Whether it
is
affects
that
existing
the
dispensaries?
changes that we were going to make made it difficult to put the methadone dispensary any place in the city. He was going to go back and check the map, and now that Judy mentioned it, that is the case. So
Weren't we talking, I mean, I wasn't at the last meeting, but wasn't at one point talking about allowing it at sites that were a hospital or a community health center?
Mm-hmm.
And was that not,
well,
I
there
thought
were
that-
some concerns about that as well.
Okay.
So
all right,
Yes, it's a map study.
all right, well, we'll, you'll have an
I'll
update on that
touch base
Monday.
with him.
Okay. On the other ones, we have 2 other zoning pieces. Agenda item number 8 relates to the special hazard areas. The planning committee is going to be meeting on that on February 6th. We have scheduled a public hearing on that for February 21st. And item number 9, which Mr. Johnson is carrying, that relates to a zoning change for 151 and 153 Grand Street. We also scheduled the hearing for that for February 21st, and that is on a planning committee agenda for 2/6 as well.
Which number was that? I'm sorry.
Which one? It's number 9.
8 and 9.
8 and 9 are the 2, correct.
So, excuse
It's
me,
posted on the
can we
website.
go back to number 8?
Yes.
So you mentioned 2 February dates.
Okay, so we have scheduled a public hearing at our meeting of February 21st. So that's our February 21st meeting,
Which is a Thursday.
which is a Thursday because of the President's holiday. And the planning committee is going to be meeting on that on February 6th.
5:30.
Okay. And these both went through the planning board, so that end's all been taken care of, and it's just now on our end now. And then the next item 10 is the bonding ordinance that relates to renovations for city buildings. This is the Engine 9 firehouse that we pulled out to get more information on, and the Finance Committee is meeting on that tomorrow. And presumably, if all goes well, that will be set for passage at our meeting.
I will note that the administration has provided no clarification other than to kind of make a commitment. And Michelle asked what should be provided, and we're providing the same information regarding the estimate for the copper roof. So just wanted, what?
I'm just thinking, why should we meet if we
It doesn't.
don't have the information that we requested?
They wanted to get
Well,
I
I mean,
don't-
it's possible that he's simply going to say we're moving forward with this. I am a little bit concerned that they may want to move forward with the full $1 million and they'll make their decision later. And that potentially leads to borrowing and paying interest on money that we're not using, which, if anybody's noticed anything, the last 3 years, that's been a little bit of an issue. Apparently, it surprises some people in the administration that I have an issue with that.
Well, the Finance Committee's meeting on that tomorrow, and we'll see what happens.
But,
10 votes.
On the other items on the resolutions held, I have all of those as held, except for number 4, which is the multi-hazard mitigation plan that we just talked about, and that will be a pass. I have one potential
I sent this
MC.
to everyone. I gave it to everyone.
Okay. So it was passed out? Mm-hmm. Except to me, I don't have it.
It's 16 copies, so.
It might be down there right there.
Yeah.
Do you need some?
The MC that was handed out? This is an ordinance that relates to snow emergency rules. I don't know if other people have had issues with this or not. The questions that I always get is, when can I cross over to the other side of the street? And downtown, we have less parking spaces than uptown, where you guys have driveways and stuff, but maybe not sidewalks, Tom.
I don't have a driveway.
Right. I have a driveway, but we don't have, that doesn't help anyway. So constantly get complaints about there's no, when can we move over? If I move over at 7:59, I'm going to get ticketed. And police department will not give you any definitive answer because they don't want to be caught in a situation where they're encouraging people. But there is a time when people start moving over. Sometimes DGS might come back, sometimes not. It's all very unclear sometimes. And there are issues also when you have cars parked on both sides of the street on a narrow street that's even narrower because the snow is in, and you have to be careful there. So what this basically would do, most of the amendments here are technical that I just caught when I looked at this section of the law. The operable part is on section 3, which would give on the second day of a snow emergency, which is the only day when you have to move over from one side to the other, it would provide a 1-hour grace period in which vehicles can be moved from the even side to the odd side. So basically at 7 o'clock, people do it earlier than that anyway, at 7 o'clock, whatever. So,
it just makes perfect sense.
yeah. So I wanted to do it as an MC only because it's a very current issue and we're going to have more snow emergencies and trying to get this discussion going. So it would be an introduction and a referral to, I'm not sure which committee yet actually, either to General Services or Law. It really deals with enforcement more than General Services, so it might probably go to the Law Committee. So I might offer that, ask majority consent to add that to the agenda on Monday, and then we'll have some more discussion on that. Tom?
Yeah, Richard, the only thing I would have General Services in on is to hear about their problems, that because of traffic being the way it is, they can't do the streets good. And I know there's a few streets up in my area where people park on both sides, and then they're complaining that the plow...
Yeah, well, it happens, and I don't know in terms of the different experiences. I think they try to focus probably more downtown than get uptown. But there are issues on some of the narrower streets where you have one side and then people begin to move over, and it's narrow. That is a problem.
Yeah.
Compliance is always an issue, and that's why you want to keep the rules simple, because we have a lot of turnover, so that people kind of know what it is. But when, there's still a lot of people that don't know the rules. Derek?
All right, I hope this is the right time, Judy. So this week, got a couple of calls about, I know one at Giffen, they got a lot of complaints that the snow wasn't removed.
Yeah.
But the snow was removed, but when the city comes through and they plow it, they just knock it right back up. I'm getting concerns from the elderly that pay to have their stuff done, and then the city comes through and when they plow, they just knock the stuff right back up.
Yeah, no,
So-
those complaints are all over the place, yeah.
So, but it's a realistic complaint if we're gonna be, with the fines, so I don't know how that works. And I know that, there was a lot of calls made, in regards to, people not being able to, move around on Green Street, Pearl Street, whatever, just the streets that surround our school. And so and it was it was an off day. So, they had someone come down there and do it, and they're not gonna have people there all day. So I was asked to try to find out what is the remedy for that, because it's a tough
Yeah, and I don't
situation.
know what the, I don't know what the remedy is actually, because it's the same complaints we have every year, where people shovel out and everything else, and the plows come through, and they push everything back in again.
It is really difficult though. I've been on the trucks before to like kind of plow, put it down, lift up,
Yeah.
plow.
Yeah.
If you're doing the driveways that most people have concerns about. But yeah, I definitely understand this.
Well, I know they use one of these big bulldozers, and the plow can only turn one direction. Because I ran over and told the guy, this side of the street, there's nobody living here. And he said, I can't turn the plow, it's a fixed plow.
And like sometimes when I come here, I'm just looking for direction.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that I could have called, but I'm pretty sure he was busy today, as he's been busy. So it's tough sometimes to have the right answer, or where to get the right answer from, whether to bring it up at the table or to try to reach out to.
Well, I would say reach out to Sergio. I mean, I'll give you an example. We had where they plowed in some of the crosswalks, and he did come up about 5 days later with a front end loader and clean them off.
I had that too. Well, I sent an email, and they took care of my concerns with the elderly person.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have on the agenda. Any other issues on, that's right, that's all on the agenda, right? Yeah. Then we should probably touch base a little bit on fallout.
Fallout?
Well, whatever. I don't know. So the mayor has canceled leadership meetings, so.
What do you mean?
Are you serious?
Yeah, like they really weren't worth that much. We would the leadership would meet with the mayor's office Wednesday morning to review the agenda and any other issues.
Yeah.
But and Corey and
Yeah, there
we'll
was
have the
always
same-
the agenda. The thing is, we've had these conversations with you all before, so we didn't see it coming because they didn't tell us. It's not for lack of us saying, well, what about this or what about that, and trying to have more meaningful conversations about anything, but we just review the agenda. So from our point of view, we're not really going to miss anything by not having a leadership meeting because we weren't really
It's
covering
really
anything.
more an opportunity for the mayor to her office. Brian Shane and I have not talked for 4 months, so that's we just don't talk anymore. So I don't.
Talks on social
Do you
media.
go to the meetings and what, he doesn't show up, or what?
No, well, he's there sometimes.
there,
Yeah, I think I've missed a few because nothing really happens. I was at the last one.
And they often come into the room and whisper, oh, should we talk about this in front of us, and then decide not to say anything.
Well, that's a big one.
So they really were intended to be an opportunity to really have a working relationship between the mayor's office and the council, and to, talk about issues on the agenda, what's going on with us, what's going on with them, for them to give us heads up on things. We can communicate back and forth. It became, and it's really just degenerated to really nothing. And so, well, it wasn't.
I want to say we used to meet with Matt Peter also, and, I've had conversations with Leah Goldie and Kathy, regarding us missing those. Over 2 years ago, we approached them at some sort of event and mentioned it to him that we would really like to see those meetings again, so that you have a little bit more opportunity to talk about some issues in your ward and things coming down the pike, et cetera, as individual council members? And essentially, the answer is, I don't operate like that.
What Matt did when he was chief of staff, and I have sometimes my frustrations with Matt, but that's a different issue. One of the good things he did was, there was some early on in the mayor's administration, the first term, there were some problems in terms of issues and dealing with stuff. He basically saw a problem, turned it around. One of the things he did was to have small group meetings with members so that you can have on a monthly basis. And that was a way also of getting exchange of ideas, knowing what's going on, explaining things that were happening, things like that. And that kind of went away. Actually, when Shay came in, and people don't remember Shay before Brian, she continued that for a bit, but then it kind of went away. Yeah, and Shay has now went over to John McDonald's office. So that's part of it. I want
to also say that was kind of the opportunity for council members to express to the administration if they had concerns about a particular proposal coming up or something pending, et cetera.
I think they have more to lose than us.
Right.
But on the agenda, how the council members feel.
Right. But what we'd like to do is the meetings that members are having with the mayor's office or whatever. We keep talking about.
We're having. We'll see how many.
We need to be, as leadership, we need to be meeting with members also and having discussions around these issues, like with you, with all those issues you had with planning. I mean, you had a long conversation the one night, and I found out about it, but it had been going on for quite a lengthy time. And I mean, that's something I would have liked to know about and been able to address or bring up at those meetings. It was like you were dealing with them on your own, and it shouldn't be like that. So
can I ask, so you just mentioned, other council members having meetings with the mayor. Who has had a meeting with the mayor in the last 6 months where the mayor was there?
I have.
What? You have?
Just priorities.
Yeah, it's like fun.
Yeah, it sounds good.
And when was that? And how many meetings have you had?
I just wanted.
I do.
There.
I mean, up until now, I think, I have not met with her in ages, but.
I can't hear Alfredo. You've had how many?
I had a meeting with just one
Uh-huh.
on 11, but I did ask for that. So I put myself on it.
Well, yeah.
Anybody else?
I had a couple of meetings, one with her and and then, I've had probably 3 meetings with her because she came to see me at my request. And then she asked to meet with me from a meeting one day, and then we met with her and Chris Spencer. So, but I guess I hear a lot of feedback from our vote, but for me, I hear nothing about the reason that people felt why they couldn't support it. I'm not saying that at some point the Skyway may not be beneficial to the city, but it just seems real funny that she buys a house in Arbor Hill and is going to move there, and then the next thing you know, they're talking about building the yellow brick road to the waterfront, and then there's still no mention of how people feel about the neighborhoods that have been continuously underserved. And so, for me, it was something special to be a part of a body that spoke and came together to speak up against something. But, just some of the comments that you hear, it just makes people feel like only a certain group in the city has a voice, and only a certain group's vision is going to be the vision for everyone. So it's sad that it just seems that this project means more to this administration than the concerns of parts of the city, because And the other places that they did it, everybody said the state paid for it. So, you know, it might be received differently if it has state funding in it. So,
You know,
what's the
I have to respond to that because
that's why we at the table.
I know. I'm just saying that the money that the city got, I mean, that was huge. That's a lot of funding. I know. Yes, ideally we'd love to have.
We're talking about the 10.
The 3.1.
But then next year.
That's for structural repair before they transfer title to us. Not for making
Next
it
year, we're looking at bonding more, but I think that's why we needed the mayor or whomever in to talk to us about other avenues for funding that. I don't think that's a definite, this $8 million for bonding next year.
Well, can I say something? And I'm all for revitalization, but if they came back to the drawing board with this and more was included, I would be inclined to support a Skyway, but not with the ward I serve looking like it is now. I think when they talk about gentrifying downtown, Sheridan Hollow, I wish they would say Third Ward. That's the problem I have with this. They're looking for just to gentrify downtown, Sheridan Hollow, Elk Street, and reimagining the Elk Street stairs, putting $8,000 in some stairs.
Joyce, in my opinion, they're looking for ways to bring more revenue to the city so we can fund other projects in
I do get that.
Oh,
but what I want to see,
Without us getting upset, what I would challenge everybody sitting at this table is to go up to 2nd Street and look at the Arbor Hill Community Center. Walk around that Arbor Hill Community Center, right? That we give, a lot of money to Parks and Recreation, and look at what our kids actually are. Let's go to the community centers that we are presenting to the community, and take a look at what our kids are actually working with. So when I want Albany to be great. Believe me, I want Albany to grow and change naturally, like any other city should, right? But we can't keep doing it and not addressing because I work in the school district, and I'm seeing kids that's coming in that don't recognize their letters and their, a bunch of stuff that a lot of what the city used to present is no longer.
And you know what, Derek, I agree with you on that. So it's nothing you said, I don't agree, it's not that I don't agree with that, I absolutely do. But it's like, how do you get there? That's what everyone's trying to,
I just say, like, we find.
Well, okay, Mike, you say that, but a lot of the properties that are, that have the red X's on, what's involved with fixing those properties. It's a long foreclosure process and so on and so forth.
True,
So I don't know, what are you saying?
I've been trying to jump in here a couple times. There's three things I want to address. First, with regard to the need for additional information. This schedule was put upon us by the administration, and I had a conversation. It was a big deal that I got it put off from a January 3rd vote to a January 24th vote, and I had a conversation in between with Mike Wheeler in which he was adamant about the schedule, number one. Number two, with regard to the information, back on December 20th, I sent out an email with information saying, if it comes to vehicles, we want to know the prices, we want to know the ages of other vehicles that they're replacing, we want to know the justification for it. When it comes to projects, we want to know the justification. And I also asked for information about what money is in other bond accounts. Mm-hmm. I asked for information, grants. We got that information. We got the information that the administration was going to provide through Randy. And Brian basically said, I'm going to provide that to you by the 26th of December. And I'm still pulling teeth for this information. And then I'm doing follow-up with Randy Milano, and he's providing me with the information. And this $1.5 million that is being talked about as though there's money that was granted, and we just needed to bond for it, that is simply not true. Not anything that we got information on, and I dare the administration to show us something that is post-dated, dated before our vote, that shows this $1.5 million being a guarantee, and all we have to do is bond the information. That's on the information. So, this whole business of them acting like we didn't give them an opportunity, they've had since this was put in the budget, including the $8 million for next year. And I asked about the bonding for the following year also in my request, and I'll send you guys that email. Number 2, I'm very concerned about the maintenance costs on this thing.
Yes.
Well, okay,
This
more
is
discussion.
This is a bridge. This
But it
is
didn't
what,
happen.
and here's what I got when I asked the question about that. Randy Milano says they need to have the full design before they can figure out the maintenance costs. Yes, it's going to be open year-round, and oh, by the way, it's going to cost a minimum of $45,000 to $50,000. They can't even do a normal underbridge suspension kind of inspection of these things, so that it's $45,000 to $50,000 every 2 years just for a bridge inspection for this. I would love to have that amount of money put into the park, Woodlawn Park, for maintenance. But anyway, they can't do the underbridge suspension the normal way because they're concerned about the extra weight that will put on this bridge. Because there's a concern about the amount of extra weight with regard to the amount of dirt and extra concrete, etc., that is involved in this particular project. But I also went online. The High Line, my husband, by the way, said, who goes to New York City just to go to the High Line? So when people say they're going to come here just to go to this. So this project is 1/3 the size of the High Line. The High Line is completely maintained by a group of volunteers and a private, not-for-profit corporation that has a $12 million operating cost associated with that.
Per year?
Per year.
Yeah, well,
Yes,
it's a big park. I've
been to it.
I've been to it,
I've
yeah.
looked at their financial statements, etc. I've also walked it. Because as
It's
part of
amazing.
my looking at it, and I like the idea of it, but when I started thinking about how do we maintain this when we can't maintain the parks that we have,
Those are all valid questions.
so that's another issue. So when people talk about if they have the whole thing funded, we're assuming from the state something that they currently take care of. We could, and if you look at the report that we were provided with, the 2 issues are underutilized ramp and providing access, and that could be done by putting a recreational path next to it with the $3.1 million that is already allocated, because 90% of the work that would, I mean, they're even doing more work than is necessary because they're putting up.
Maybe the answer is inviting,
Thank you, Judy.
what's her
Judy's
name,
been
Sarah?
asking for this information
Sarah's
for
not
months.
Sarah's not a structural person, she'll give you
And,
What's that?
design, she's not a structural person.
No, but we can